Yo, yo, yo. It's the TA report. We're back. Welcome. It's Monday, November 6th, 2023. Your hostess with the mostest here, holding bags, along with my compadres, Jeff DI, Nicholas, and Gautam Gpaiza7 on Twitter. Hi guys. How's your week been since the last time we spoke?
That was a good week.
I'm okay with it.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a fucking banger of a week.
Yeah, if you caught the Wednesday lows, but the reality is, things are still in big wide ranges. But the Qs look great, and the leaders are leading, and I guess that's all that matters.
There you go.
Thought AMD was definitely a standout name.
Oh, for sure.
Like that weekly bar that I put in last week is like, all right.
Can we just pour one out for the NVDA Head and Shoulders colors as well?
We were talking about that a little bit before you hopped on, GP.
Yeah, we were talking shit about you first, then we talked about this.
That's all right. You can go back and look at all the charts. The ones I went over last week are still crappy, but the DELL is still doing well. The one that did look good.
Nick, you have a little twat about DELL earlier yesterday. Yeah, was it yesterday? I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, dude, do you see many? The only person that I've even seen mention DELL is Sunrise Trader. Other than that, like, I haven't seen many people even like tripping about it for as good as that chart looks.
Yeah.
Stop mentioning it. We should
Yeah,
stop talking about it. As soon as you get more eyes on it,
I triggered a buy in the 37s and it's now at 71. So, I mean,
that's a sweet double.
Whatevs.
Yeah.
It looks great though.
I mean, what were you guys talking about?
We were talking about
shoulders. Head and shoulders.
Let's go back to NVIDIA before we get too crazy here.
Yeah, we were just so like, okay, you have NVIDIA, right? And everybody with a couple eyeballs is basically calling for Head and Shoulders. So you have this line, which is pretty damn clear as like the neckline, right? So let's just take a pattern, a Head and Shoulders pattern. Like we as the trader or humans, like more or less give these patterns meaning. So it's like, is a failed bearish pattern actually bullish? Is a failed bullish pattern bearish? And my point was just that, like, if you're using the pattern as a way of drawing lines to manage risk, and you have this like pretty clear cut neckline, like a failed bearish pattern in my mind is significantly more bullish than just a run of the mill, like, I don't know, bull flag or,
Agreed.
Ascending triangle, because you have the bulls have obviously stepped in to support the name, like whether, like price dips below the neckline. And so you've got dip buyers stepping in, you've got other bulls stepping in, but then they rip it and the shorts have to cover. Just adding fuel to the fire was just kind of like, it was kind of the point that we were making. It was just like,
yeah,
we give these patterns meaning, whether it's a bullish or bearish implication, but like whether they fail or succeed in the first implied move kind of gives it, I don't know. I'm kind of like, you know what I'm saying, right?
I hear what you're saying, but what if we entertain the thought that it wasn't a Head and Shoulders, right? So what if the pattern recognition is what's missing?
Wait, say that again?
Like, what if it wasn't never a Head and Shoulders?
I mean,
Well,
how would you
go on?
Yeah.
I mean, just
right. So
follow that train of thought.
From what goes with Head and Shoulders patterns is typically what goes with volume, right? And you usually have blowout volume usually at the head, right? And sometimes leading into the left shoulder as well. But you didn't get blowout volume on the head, nor so you didn't see any distribution, right? Signs of what a head and shoulders pattern is a topping pattern, right? So it's a topping pattern that just because it looks like a head and shoulders doesn't mean it has the characteristics of a head and shoulder, right? So
Sure.
if you don't have the distribution to go along with what the pattern is showing, it's probably not going to happen, right? Like, and if you look at, I think we talked about this a while ago about head and shoulders, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but Boeing is one of the greatest examples of a clear-cut head and shoulders, right? Or recently, FSLR. Look at the blowout volume in FSLR creating that, like on the daily. If you go to the daily, because everyone was talking about daily, not weekly with NVIDIA, right?
So talk about like the huge candle back in
Yeah, it
May.
had a 28% move on a Friday on some of the biggest volume it's seen in like 10, 15 years, right? So you're looking at after a big ass move, right? You're talking about it went from 60 to 240, a 4x move over a year, and then you get this capitulation type volume. So leading into it, the trend was high, right? And then you have this basically who's left to buy, right? That's basically what's going on here. And so if no one's left to buy at the top, then what happens is a head and shoulders formation, which is it's a distribution pattern essentially, right? So in NVIDIA, when they announced their earnings, what did you see from an institutional perspective? It wasn't clearing out positions. It was how can we add more,
Sure.
right? So if you're looking at, like, to me, I look at a lot of different things. So I understand that you're looking at this and saying it's a head and shoulders pattern, but I'm saying, hey, there's literally institutions and big guys. I think Drunkenmiller was one of them, and a few other guys who are buying into NVIDIA on their earnings report of Q2 or Q3, not selling into the earnings report, right? So they're in an accumulation pattern. So that my argument has been with NVIDIA. Yes, it was definitely weak. It needed I don't know why it needed a flush, but it needed the flush on the same news over and over again, which is China's import, whatever. And we're starting to move higher, but I never thought it was a head and shoulders. I understand the look of it, and recently I've been questioning myself because everything that looks like a pattern seems to work out, but I'm like, this is not to me and we've talked about it on this podcast as well, which is they're buying and they don't buy for 1 or 2 quarters.
Sure.
They're buying, and so if the price is coming down, it's because they're trying to accumulate more. So this is, to me, is an accumulation pattern, not necessarily a
Distribution.
yeah. So that's the conversation and the arguments that are going on in my own head, but also on the charts. And so not seeing that blowout volume, right, on the head mostly was something that was like, no, this doesn't make any sense, right? So I understand the pattern is looking like the pattern. I can't argue that it looks like a head and shoulders, but it just wasn't to me.
Yeah, I feel you.
And you can take the other side of that argument, which is it's a failed head and shoulders, right? It's the same. The result is the same. You're wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's what, like, when I talk about these things, I think it's important for people to look at all the different characteristics rolling into some of these chart patterns and not just call chart patterns because they see 2 shoulders and a head, right? So that's why I talk about it. But up to
No, it
you
makes
guys.
sense to me.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So, regardless of if we use the volume, I think what Nick was probably getting toward was is the pattern itself weaker or stronger than the failed pattern, right, Nick? I think that's probably what you were pointing at, not
Yeah,
necessarily
just
NVIDIA in general, but is the move stronger from a false move than it would be if the pattern holds?
yeah. I mean, ultimately, like these patterns, in generally speaking, are like self-fulfilling prophecies, right? Like everybody's looking at it, whether or not our definition or GP's definition of a head and shoulders is what we're actually seeing. Just the fact that we had, everyone on on FinTwit, basically like saying it's a Head and Shoulders or calling it for Head and Shoulders. I mean, if in GP's case, it likely would be it would give like the bull even more conviction, being that they're not seeing a Head and Shoulders there. They're looking at it
Right.
as accumulation, and then you have that kind of shakeout move. I mean, yeah, I don't. I think there's
Well,
like
Yeah.
a lot of different ways to
I
like
can
look
answer this for him, but in NVIDIA's particular case, if it was a Head and Shoulders, it was a weak Head and Shoulders. So yes, the reversal, the opposite move, right? The failed Head and Shoulders should be stronger.
Yeah.
Could be. And what I was talking about is the accumulation that's happening is making it even stronger, right? So
Yeah, right.
it gives the justification, not justification, but the kind of the background to understand why it's also stronger, because they haven't been distributing, they've actually been accumulating. So when you have something that doesn't break, where everyone thinks it's going to break, the accumulation then takes over and runs higher.
Boom.
So same result, right, Nick?
Yeah.
It's the only reason I provide the color is just so people can stop posting terrible chart patterns.
100%.
Right.
Then just
Back
think
to
about what.
AMD, which is had just an incredible move post earnings. The earnings was actually down after hours for it
Yeah.
just completely rip, right? Just rip. It was down to almost $92 to rip to 111 at today's close. NVIDIA has earnings in 15 days, and I would venture to say, since we saw this kind of move from AMD, we might see a positive move on NVIDIA post earnings. Just
Yeah.
just a guess.
So I'd also add in, if the assumption is the flush out was the final kind of accumulation moment, right, and they're done accumulating here after what, 4 months of sideways, 5 months of sideways in NVIDIA since May, that supports that as well. Right, the whole accumulation up here has been above that May earnings bar.
Yeah.
So if that final flush out is them done accumulating, then the move starts to expand higher.
How butthurt are the perma bears going to be when this goes to 600?
Oh,
And I'm not saying it goes to 600 post earnings, don't get me wrong. But if we look at just the chart, right, and think of it as stepping higher, 600's a lot closer than the breakout post earnings 315, right?
Yeah.
There's gonna be angry people on the internet. Surprise. Shocker.
The flag, I think, range is about 100 and something points. So from the flag breakout, it should tag the 600 area, but it probably goes higher than that.
Right. No, I would agree with you. I'm just saying we've heard about Nvidia being so overvalued from the sub 200, and then when it exploded over 400,
Right. No.
600 is going to be insanity.
Yeah.
Heads are going to explode.
But I think heads are going to explode in general if they're looking at these markets.
yeah, for sure. I don't.
Why do you say for sure, Nick?
I think that the amount of it wasn't just the traders calling for like normal kind of corrective moves. Like, okay, like talking about the Qs, for instance, we fell below that floor. Like, if we fell below that 350 floor, like, why wouldn't you be in the camp that we're gonna continue to, like, whatever your reason or logic is, to like whether we're gonna test the 200-day, whether we're just simply range expansion to the downside. But like the amount of perma, like, good night annihilation type like calls were coming out of the woodworks again. And Apple, I think, was the one that I was seeing the most for whatever reason. I think that's what got me kind of like riled about it, was like the amount of like good night tweets I was seeing, and like how Apple's like getting, I don't know, the amount of things that I was just seeing. I don't know why it was showing up on my feeds in the way that it was, because I don't normally like see a lot of the stuff. I was just like, especially considering it was down, it opened down after EPS and held up extremely well. And as soon as it, yeah, like, was like, dude, this is setting up like perfectly for like an end of the week freaking rally day for the rest of the names. Everything else was holding up. Apple gap down, was strong all morning. If we're starting to break out here, and like we're talking, okay, going back to talking about NVIDIA, if everyone's thinking that it's like this, head and shoulders, it fails, and now we're anticipating a more of like a face ripper move to the upside. I think that's what we're starting and potentially could be seeing in the markets as a whole, not just these few names. I mean, a lot of like the smaller names were, Shop was popping hard.
Yeah, but it went all the way to 46, guys, right? Like shop at 46 back to where it was 4 months ago is a great move, but holy shit, like that's frustrating, right? They basically wiped out people for 4 months and then has an earnings move. So like as an investor, you're like, oh cool, that's happy news, but I'm back to where I was 5 months ago, right? So there's a lot of frustration from that perspective, but it's still not breaking the pivot, right? So what I would have expected in some of these moves, like Roku and Shop, is for them to take out this range. So like I don't want them to see, I don't want to see in the next couple of weeks here start to falter again, right in the top of
No,
the
I
range.
agree with you.
So I'm a bit more cautious until we start taking out pivots that matter, at least to me. And
Yeah, well,
there was a
exactly
lot
to
of
your
mean
point.
reversion, but there wasn't pivot. Like Microsoft is one of the few that's leading pretty hard, and it had an all-time high weekly close, so that gives me hope. But a lot of these names that have been beaten up for 4 months didn't accelerate past the pivot, right? Like because to be honest, they were just so beaten up. It's going to be hard to have a 50% move in a week.
Yeah.
So but you do want to see in the next couple of weeks that they start taking out pivots here. Otherwise, this is more of the kind of the range bound mean reversion stuff. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Well,
Yeah.
for a range bound mean reversion market, if that's what we could be setting up into, today was boring. I sat in front of my computer for about 2 hours and I was just like, this is enough of this shit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was just terrible. There was no volume, there was nothing.
Yeah, no, and then you get that last 5 minute boner bar on the SPY and the Qs, and you're right back to basically where you opened the day. And it's
Yep.
just like the whole day traded within like a $2 range. And you're just like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, but so like so we're talking about this is so today's price action was actually pretty constructive, right? So
Agreed.
you had IWM going lower, which you would expect because rates are going higher, right? TNX is going higher, and IWM it had a monster week last week, so it's pretty much resting. And then while those are doing things that are not as sensitive to the rates, like the mega caps, they were doing well. They were showing strength today, right? So it was
Yeah,
constructive
no,
overall.
I agree. It was constructive. I mean, and just because it was boring doesn't mean it's not setting up favorably to a bigger time frame. But someone who likes to squeeze a trade or two off during a session, that was just like, why am I even here today?
Yeah.
I could have gotten a play hooky doctor's note and it wouldn't have mattered.
No, not at all. Unless you were an Eli Lilly. That thing is a beast.
What did Lily do? Oh, that was a nice little pop. That's a Head and Shoulders.
I was happy to see DraftKings catch some follow through. One of the few that's kind of taking out that
Wow,
pivot
that's
like
a nice move.
you were talking about.
Yeah.
Did they have earnings?
And I think we start to see more of these, Nick. I'm not saying that we don't, but
Yeah,
we haven't yet, right? So
range bound until otherwise for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice move on the Drunken Kings there.
Donkey Kong.
Of like the kind of the cheaper names, Uber Dash,
Uber looks really good.
are kind of two that I'm definitely stocking.
I like Uber. I was looking at that all day today. But I was like, I'm not gonna bleed any premiums while this crap market might consolidate for like a week or two.
Yeah, kind of work out. It'd be nice to what is his name? Mark Minervini has his volatility contraction pattern. I think that's what would be really nice to see where like like the McClellan, at least again from what I watch, like we spiked the overbought readings and seeing some of these names, like again, like kind of back to Shop or Uber, like these names kind of like push back towards the high end of the range and just get really tight and set up for some sweet potential follow through.
Some sweet loving.
Sweet loving, yeah.
Like coin is one of the examples I look at quite often in terms of like breaking out of a pivot. That 8651 that it tagged, 86, what was it, 8651 or somewhere around there. It's tagged that level in the last since August, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times I can see. And it's rejected it every time. And even today, got to that level and closed right below it. So you're like, all right, well, I see you. You've also had a big move since last week. So maybe
Coin looks fabulous to me.
It does. What I'm saying is none of this stuff is breaking pivots, right? So if we want a larger, bigger move in the markets, these things need to start taking out the pivots. Otherwise, it's just bottom top range. Right?
And since we're talking coin, Ethereum looks fantastic to me too.
Yeah.
I just love the little prairie dogging out right at the top of the range there. It's got all the moving averages. I really, really like some ETH.
Great. I like it. It looks better than Bitcoin right now.
Well, it's not quite alt season, but ETH will be ETH will be going and other alts will follow. I mean, I know Solana's popped, Aves popped. I don't want to get too down the crypto rabbit hole, but it's still Bitcoin season.
Yeah, Solana had a pretty decent move, no?
Yeah, it did. Yep, Aave did too.
Okay.
Kind of the same. Anyway, I love coin. I think it looks awesome.
Yeah.
Do you like any of the other ones like Riot and Mara and Why Bother?
I don't even think I should do a better job of thinking of the miners, but I don't. I don't even think of the miners because I'm thinking of the coin themselves, and I'm thinking of Coinbase.
Sure.
I need to do a better job of doing it because obviously there can be money to be made with the miners. I just don't. You know how it is, Nick, when you have too many tickers on your watch list, and
yeah,
it's
MicroStrategy looks phenomenal.
It does look
Is
good.
that MU?
So like
Master.
they're not a miner, they're just a Bitcoin holder. So Bitcoin, they're one of like the bigger pure plays of Bitcoins.
Yeah.
So this looks phenomenal to me. So suggests that Bitcoin it's just a matter of when it goes, not if it goes, right?
Yep.
So and then you have the other one that I look at from a Bitcoin perspective is Hut mining, because they actually mine Bitcoins and they turn around and keep some and sell most for profits and stuff like that. That's how they make, that's their business. But Hut has on a weekly has some monster accumulation in Hut.
All
It's just
three of
hard.
them, Hut,
Yeah.
Mara, and Riot. I mean, they look pretty much the same.
Yeah. So the miners probably obviously get bigger moves. But at some point, because there's a limited supply of Bitcoin, don't the miners stop mining?
Well, I think they mine other things, right? They don't just mine Bitcoin.
Oh, I don't know. I'm asking. I'm not as familiar.
Yeah, no, that you can mine a lot of different cryptos. What else do you
Yeah,
think
that
looks good, Nick?
MicroStrategy does look good.
CP?
I like Palantir and again and DraftKings obviously. Kind of the four like kind of cheaper names that I've been kind of stalking and watching, but Netflix I think looks freaking amazing. And we kind of talked about that last week, kind of trading against that 400 level. You're basically up 30 40 points from that, from the 50 day. So
It's just had a monster move, so I hope the
yeah,
monster move continues. It should have never been in the 340s in the first place. Um, but
Costco's continuing to look great.
yeah, Costco looks good. Costco looks good. I believe QCOM looks pretty good too.
What?
Well,
I'm
look
just
at
saying,
that engulfing of like the prior 12
Long
weeks.
time QCOM hater, first time caller, GP in the house.
That's right. That earnings move was pretty good.
Yeah, they've been known to drop some deuces on their earnings calls, so that was good.
Yeah. Um,
So here's I like Qualcomm. I like a lot of different semiconductors, and to me, if you're not playing AMD and NVDA, I mean, On got slaughtered on their earnings.
yeah.
On was a name we liked a lot. To
MU
me,
looks
it's
great.
you know, and this is what I do. So this is my own way of looking at semiconductors. If you don't have your two or three semis that you like I do, right? I'm in AMD, I'm in Marvell. I just go with Soxel. I mean, that's when I want to put some semis on, I just buy some Soxel and just sleep just fine at night. That's the three times, bullish shares. And it goes down, it comes up, sell some, buy some, sell some, buy some. And nothing against Qualcomm. I like Qualcomm, but I'm just going to ride the wave of all of them together. Anyway,
Yep. That makes sense.
you gotta have, in my opinion, you gotta have some NVIDIA, you gotta have some AMD, one or the other. You don't necessarily need both.
God, it'd be great to see AMD like play some catch up to NVIDIA, because that weekly and monthly I think look like a freaking launch pad in AMD.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really tough, Nick. And we talked about this with Elon, right? Just saying he would buy all the NVIDIA
Yeah,
chips he could. It's just hard when you're going against that, when everybody will buy all of the chips available. And I don't know if, I mean, we got to go back to fucking the beginning of time here, basically, to see AMD outperform NVIDIA.
Not so
So
much outperform, but just kept. Yeah, for sure. I'm with you.
that doesn't mean that, AMD can't be very profitable, but it's like from 20, let's just start of 2021. It's up 244%. NVIDIA is, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Lisa Su, but facts are facts. That doesn't mean AMD can't be profitable, but NVIDIA is far exceeded. I would love to see that happen. I would love to see AMD. I'm long AMD. I'd love to see AMD catch NVIDIA, but I chose my horse.
For how what's the name that got hit last week?
On
what was it?
on
No, I was gonna
Lattice Semi, LSCC got destroyed.
see.
Oh man, yeah, that got hard.
Me no likey.
Palo Alto kind of hit the shitter today.
Well, that was GP short. That's GP
Nice.
short. I wouldn't start celebrating just yet, GP.
I know, it's too strong.
Well, it's too strong. Like, you look at its cohort, right? It might lose some of its power, but the cohort right now is not dying. We can look at some bug. The ETF doesn't look as good, but I mean, I think Okta was even up last week. It was up. Anyway, last week it was.
I think cybersecurity is going to experience just the rotation, right? I just think it's rotation. Yeah. I don't think there's personally anything wrong with any of these. So no personal attacks, please. But it just seems like rotation. Everyone's been hiding out in cybersecurity, and now they want their money to be working somewhere else.
Money's got to come out.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Because PanW, if you look at the chart, it's up and to the right, right? So
forever.
Yeah. So that's, and they can maybe not go down, but they could just underperform other things as well, right? Yep. That's another option.
Well, let's talk about some underperformance as of late on something that I am long in. I know, GP, you're long in. This was my pick for the quarter, which is coming up in 4 weeks. Got to see who outperformed, but
who lost the least.
Who lost the least? Well, remember, we hedged with our shorts. Remember, we chose our shorts to hedge. I don't even remember what we picked. You chose Palo Alto, SMCI, and I chose Lulu. Look at those. Look at those fucking losers. Anyway, I don't know. I kind of, back to Tesla. I don't know. It just seems like it's still wanting to be laggard. And I know when you take the eye off Tesla, it does something crazy. But like, there's not a lot of, it doesn't seem like many people are talking about it. Many people care. I know it's still traded, very heavily, but it doesn't look great to me anymore. And that doesn't mean I'm trying to sell it or anything. I don't know. What's your guys' take on the chart?
I was happy with the close. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nick. No, you go first.
I was gonna say I was happy with the close today. I think the risk reward is pretty kind of clear cut. You just use the gap. And it's, as long as price holds above the August 18th low, which again, if your stop is in the gap, you're based on that holding. It's back within the kind of the range between 280 and let's just say 200.
So you're cool as long as it holds 211, basically.
Yeah, I'd just call it 200 even. I think 200 is a nice round number to trade against. So, but yeah, what is the low there?
It's quite a bit below.
Yeah, 212. So as long as it's kind of above, let's just say that 210, 212 ish, it's back within the range. And the breakdown last week, I would consider a breakdown failure, kind of in the same sense that we're talking about NVIDIA. So I would just connect the highs of the 19th through like Friday's high and kind of use that as like my next kind of like pivot to trade against, like a break through that kind of descending trend line. Not saying add to your position or enter a position, but
not financial advice.
Yeah, right. We break through that, and then then the next step or next
so let me get it right. You like it above 210 and above 230, you're really happy.
Yeah, for sure. After 230, we'll head towards the gap fill at 242. Let me throw some fibs on my chart real quick. Yeah, ultimately, if it can get above that 230 and hold, then I'm definitely in a camp that we're heading back to the highs of the range. That 230 is the 50% from this like kind of most recent leg down. And that's just the level that I like to use as like a kind of defining line on whether or not I think price is heading in one direction or the other.
All right. So don't be range bound between 210 and 230. Choose a direction. GP?
I will always label it the Widowmaker. It literally just it is over the last 3 or 4 years, it is a flow show when there is no real news to kind of pump it out, right? So on days like today, look, man, it went down like $5 and pretty much closed flat. It was up $5 and went down $5. So $10 range, and it's just all, if you're looking at it, it's just flow, flow, flow. It's premium, selling, buying, all that stuff in the absence of good news. I think once he sets a Cybertruck date, right? Or did he already do that? Did he send out the invites? He hasn't sent out the
something in November. I'll believe it when I see it.
But I don't think he sent out the invites yet, right? No. So I think something needs to solidify in terms of news that looks better. But if you're looking at the Tesla daily chart, it's basically been holding, testing, rejecting the 2020 December breakaway gap. On a monthly basis, if you go to the month, you can see it on the daily too, but the month is pretty clear cut.
The 2020 December.
Yeah.
There you
go. You see it? I think it's like 199 or whatever it is. It opened at 199.20.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been it broke underneath that in late last year, right? Came back and reclaimed it within 2 months, kind of rejected it, came back, reclaimed it the next like 3 months. It's now been testing and holding that kind of breakaway gap. Why is that 2020 area important to me? Is because that's also when they got the S&P inclusion, right? That was when I think it was like December or whatever, right? So that whole month was kind of important. So they've been trying to break it underneath, they couldn't. So from a longer time frame, it is holding where it needs to. Shorter time frame, it all really depends on flow, in my opinion, right? It like the moving averages, all that stuff just doesn't ever seem to really matter with this one in a meaningful way. So on a month basis, if we go back to the month for a second, it has not made a new low this month, which is always a good sign, right? Because as soon as you break, even if it's by a penny or so, it's kind of testing the waters of breaking prior month's lows. It's a prior pivot low. It could be month, week, whatever you're looking at. But once that kind of happens, you should be more concerned, right? That they're firing a warning shot, but they may not do it right away, and it might come back and break it like a week later, right? So we're not getting that break on the month. Last week we had a pretty sizable wick off that 199.22 area on increased volume. I think it's time. You got to give this thing time. It's not something that ever goes according to anyone's plan, so to speak, when it comes to action. But I still think it's very constructive. I actually added to my long-term shares for the first time in the last year around 198.
There you go.
Yeah, so money where my thoughts are. My
right.
last ad was in like the 120s before that.
All right.
I like it. I like the long-term prospects. And they're executing, right? I think that's what's important to me. So to me, I think it from a trading perspective, it's going to be hard.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see a lot that I mean, other than the check off of the 50 weekly here, which is pretty beautiful. I mean, you undercut it and then you pop back higher. I hadn't looked at the monthly, but Nick, I think you're spot on with that 230 because you've got the 9 and the 20 up at 225 and 228. So if you get above 230, you're cooking a little bit, right? You got some, you might have some mojo. So that'd be all right to see. We'll see. We shall see.
Yeah.
It never actually got that monthly MACD cross, I don't think, did it? No, it didn't. It was about to. Huh,
daily it just happened. Weekly is pulling away. So this is gonna take some time, to be honest, unless there's
it's not going there this week. In my humble opinion.
No, I never got the monthly cross, Nick. And the quarterly's still gone too. So there's stuff it needs to work through. It had what, a 2,700% move.
And
So,
Rivian reports tomorrow.
oh, maybe that's the catalyst.
Maybe. Could be.
I don't know how Rivian would ever catalyze Tesla, but sure.
Well, I mean, they are in the same industry, and maybe sales. I don't know. I don't know what data they're going to reveal. What they could reveal after on their earnings report. Obviously, what the normal earnings. There might be some sympathy along with it, right? If Rivian's really good, you should expect to see Tesla up.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't be because Rivian did something now, Tesla is, 2x higher or whatever. That's not going to happen.
No.
Oh.
Hey, how about your Disney GP? Did you get back in that?
No, I did not. What I wanted to happen was the material move from this range bound to the 200 day, and then it just kind of stopped at that 86 level. I was like, I don't. This is too much.
Yeah, that mid 80s is that's a little bit of a wall.
Yeah, but what I wanted, what I think we talked about, which was off this kind of mean reversion back to the 200 day, which sits around like 91, 92, and then trickle lower the rest of December or the end half of December for the tax loss harvesting, and then become one of the better stocks in 2024 because they've spent this year kind of accumulation. And so the problem is I'm not seeing a lot of accumulation, but like I think one of its counterparts, like Square, you saw that last week. It got to that 38 level that I talked about quite often. And on earnings, saw buyers step in and step in pretty decently. So this is something that should be on your radar over the next couple of months as it kind of gyrates through building out somewhat of a mini base down here.
Kathy's a note on Jack's back at Square or Block. I haven't paid attention, but I saw that headline.
Who, Jack?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, he left Square?
Let me pull up the note.
I haven't been really paying attention, especially on a day like today where it was like a snooze fest. I'm like, I'm not reading crap.
I'll find it. Jack Dorsey is back in the saddle at Block.
I didn't even know he wasn't in the saddle. Maybe that's why.
Square CEO Alyssa Henry departed in October. CEO Jack Dorsey committed to a more active role in the day-to-day operations.
That explains a lot. Holy crap, that's a huge piece of news that maybe I should pay attention to.
So there you
I
go.
didn't even know Jack stepped down.
I haven't paid attention to the company in quite some time. I just saw that note from Kathy in her little art newsletter.
Interesting.
Shouldn't call it little. In her art newsletter, I shouldn't call it little. It's diminutive.
Yeah. So like on the same side of that, PayPal didn't get the same kind of buying off earnings, right?
No.
As Square did. So I don't know how PayPal really looks, to be honest. Maybe it's one of the ones that don't ever really come out of this.
What is their moat?
Venmo?
It's not a moat.
I don't know. I don't understand how it's still like $70 billion in value.
Yeah. Nothing against PayPal, but every bank who has online services, which is 99% of the banks, offer you Zelle, right?
Yeah.
You have Cash App, which is Square's version. Like, I don't know. It just seems like they still, don't get me wrong, PayPal still has a very big place and as the shopping cart of the internet, but you're also seeing Google Pay and Apple Pay, right? Amazon Pay,
Yeah.
across everything. So, I don't know. Just curious as to why.
No, I don't know. I just noticed that they started to separate from each other as well, right? Like
yeah, there's
Square. Yeah. And that kind of makes sense with the emergence of Bitcoin, right? It's Bitcoin is what's going to differentiate Square from PayPal, if anything.
One thing that I noticed this weekend while I was doing charts, like the IGV, a names that I've liked in the past. Sure, they had a big week last week, but almost every one of them sold off on Friday toward the end of the day. And like look at Salesforce, right? Down today, I mean, actually a move up from the lows, but the IGV as a whole, I don't know. I'm not being bearish here, but this is not a clean look from a sector that I'm not going to say are as important as semiconductors to tech, but usually when you see a tech rally, the IGV is sitting there as a full house, right? Like they're ready to go with you.
Yeah.
I don't really see that in the charts of the IGV. Not that it's a terrible look, but it just seems weaker than some of the other names that we've mentioned tonight.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we talked about snow, right, last week.
We
And
did.
I still don't understand the affliction or whatever you want to call it here to
The
this
affliction,
name.
I think that's pretty apropos.
Yeah, to the to this name, right? I just like I don't get it. And then you saw MDB wasn't great, team wasn't great. Um,
Twilio's been a dog.
yeah. And then you also have like the cybersecurity, which uses a lot of software, right?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So like they're also not doing well. So I think they're part of the rotation, right? Like um
But if
it
we go
doesn't
back
make
to
sense.
semis, right?
Yeah.
Like semis do look better than the IGV. I mean, just it's night and day, right? Like that is not strength. That is showing strength. I mean, you're basically flagging near the highs, right? If I'm looking at the SMH
Yep.
versus the IGV. And the IGV is like flagging at the 50%. Is that even the 50%?
No, I
Might be a
don't
little
even
bit
know.
more. Anyway, Nick, you're our resident Fibonacci retracement or extension brother.
On IGV.
Yeah.
Pop that sucker up. I I think the IG, like I like it.
Yeah.
I mean it. How I would be kind of looking at it as kind of a descending wedge into the 200-day or into that 40-week moving average. Um, I'd have alerts set basically on a breakout, so like kind of like I'd probably even use like 358, and then
Yep.
again at highs at like 373 is probably where I'd have alerts set, and I'd probably forget about it until then. But
You're right.
um,
Well, I mean that's 5%, right? Or not 378 or 373. That's
yeah,
six and a half
basically
percent.
it basically held the point, so that the 40-week was kind of right in line with the 0.382, which signifies quite a bit of strength if it can hold here.
Okay.
Just on more of like the weekly basis. On where it's kind of struggling is basically at the 50% from,
Mm-hmm.
it's from its 2021 highs to lows. So again, it's kind of why I like looking at that 50%. But if it breaks out of this kind of this wedge, I mean, shit, yeah, I kind of like it.
Yeah.
It's just
All
you
right. All right.
gotta be.
Nick's more positive than I am.
I mean, it's got to be patient, like especially if you don't have like a position on it
Well,
currently.
yeah, if you don't reach that 372, like it's just pain,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty much flagging at the 61% retracement from the 2020 lows.
Yep.
It's above the rising 200 week, right? So you can't be too bearish on it.
No, no, I'm
Yeah,
not saying that like I think it's going to make new lows. What I'm saying is if I use it as a symbiote to say, to give it some relation to how tech has moved in the past. If we look at the semis as being the leader, right? IGV is usually pretty strong when tech rallies if semis are leading. And I'm not saying semis are currently leading, but semis look really good to lead. Um, I don't know. Maybe this has been the ugly part of the chart or the accumulation that turns the thing around and pushes it where, near all-time highs again. I don't know.
Yeah, if you wanted to use the fib retracement as your kind of stop, which is 344.67 from the 2020 lows, COVID lows. It's only a few bucks. It's a 1%, right? So you can actually keep a pretty tight stop too.
Hmm.
If you want to just use it's a level that has found resistance and support many times over the last basically since December 2020, right? That 340 level.
Righto.
So yeah, you have the risk reward is not bad here, right? Like if you're diligent about it, if you're strict about it. But if you're like, oh well, I'm gonna just buy more, then that's a different conversation, right? You're trying to accumulate a position. But if you want to take a trade versus that 344, 345 level is probably a decent risk reward.
All right. I like when I can provoke you two guys to counter me.
Yeah. You know what's earnings this week is as well? ARM.
What?
Is it this week?
Yeah. This November 8th is what mine says. Or is it next
What's
week?
Says 29th on TradingView.
I think their investor relations said 11.82.
I don't know.
Roblox is this week too, isn't it?
Is it?
Earnings Whisper says I do not see Roblox. No, I do not see ARM according to Earnings Whispers either.
Yeah, Roblox is on the 8th. ARM is on the 29th.
Yeah, okay, I see Roblox. Yeah, there it is on before open on Wednesday.
At least according to MarketSmith, it has EPS due on the 29th. Oof.
November 8th. I can literally, I'm on the website at ARM. It's November 8th.
Ah, all right.
It's yeah, not that we don't believe you. Just earnings sometimes is pin the tail on the donkey, right? Like
Yeah.
a lot of these are guesses when earnings should be because the investor relations might not be as good as some others.
Yep.
Well, they reported at this time, and we're going to do 100 days from now or whatever.
I'm looking at their website now. So if that changes, it says ARM Holdings today announced it will report financial results for the second quarter of the fiscal year 2024 on Wednesday, November 8th, after the market close.
Uber, we talked about Uber. Uber's in the morning. Uber is their earnings are before market opens, along with Celsius and Datadog. DR4.
Did you see Bill? Woo!
I did not see Bill.
Oh man, I got whacked.
Rushed. Oof.
Was earnings, the markets
earnings was last week, yeah?
Yeah, it got destroyed. That's in the wake of what the markets did last week, and you're like, wowzers.
Yeah. Bill Holdings.
If you're a growth company, you're not growing, guess what happens?
Womp, womp, womp is what happens.
Y'all. I don't know about Roblox, man. It's
I don't even know what is. It's just a video game company, right?
For kids, and I still like the accumulation in the chart, but I don't know if this earnings or next earnings or the 17th earnings from today or tomorrow will be the ones that matter. So
I'd rather play Nutties.
yeah. You know, the other one that looks pretty good is AAPL
Is that APP?
Yep.
That is APP. Little
When you
flag
talk
there.
to people, do you talk to people in ticker symbols, or do you actually like say words?
When I'm texting people, I normally use the ticker symbols, and they're usually like, "What the fuck is that?" I'm like, "Oh, that's Apple." They're
Yeah,
like,
I do the same thing. Yeah, I do the same thing. Especially tickers that I frequent a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm always checking Apple. I'm always checking Microsoft. Like,
CMG.
yeah, my phone defaults to some of these symbols as opposed to the word. It's embarrassing.
You know what looks good? Is roast, ROST. Is that?
I saw you post about that, Nick. Raw
Yeah, I mean,
stores.
we've
I'm
been
not
talking
like
about this for a while now.
same thing with like Lulu. Like just have a tough time like trading like retail names. Like I don't.
They don't have the same moves, right? Like
Yeah,
you have to have months to get these moves. It's not 1 day or 2 days, right?
yeah. But anyways, I thought roast looks pretty damn good. And it was kind of like starting to break out um today and Friday. But they also have EPS in, well, it looks like 10 days. So they're on the 16th. But man, I didn't even realize Abercrombie and Fitch was still a fucking clothing brand.
Oh
What the
man,
hell?
they killed it.
Dude. Wow.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, they went cuckoo cuckoo.
Abercrombie and Fitch. Oh man.
All the
They're
retail
not.
names are actually looking pretty good. Even Target looks fairly decent.
Oh, don't tease me.
Dude, Abercrombie is not like bro clothes anymore. Like what? I don't even know what you kind of clothing you'd call
Broke clothes.
like what like all the fucking like torn jeans and all that crap. Man, I didn't even realize. Wow, wow. I just went to their website.
It really just shows you how well your marketing and having a really good website can do for you.
Yeah,
What are bro clothes?
like I called like
What the
bro
soy
clothes like.
boys wear.
No, like
That
I
the
guess I just
Aeropostales?
yeah, like I associated like back in the day with like buying jeans that are like already like ripped up and stuff, and then like uh it was always like the logo t-shirts with like weird numbers on it that like I don't know, like I just saw you'd see
It,
this like the Jersey Shore dudes like wear that kind of crap.
it was a store we couldn't shop in because it was too expensive. So we went to its cheap brother
Yeah,
Aeropostale.
same thing. I went to like JC Penney or
Yeah.
TJ Maxx. I'd take TJ Maxx, and I'd have to get the pair that had like the stitching was off a little bit.
We also had this place called Against All Odds. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but basically for like $10 you would get like a full like tracksuit. It was fantastic. Oh
Nice.
man, when you're broke, you're broke. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no shit.
yeah,
I mean,
so.
I don't know. I'm like I wear the same clothes pretty much every day kind of guy. So I don't spend a lot of money on what I wear I call tech fab. That's technical fabrics. Clothes that I can hike, bike, and work out in, and that's kind of what I stick to.
Dude, for a long time, because I work from home, I used to wear. Mostly, I was forced to throw out because they're like, dude, you're too old to do this. I just like when I buy like my protein powders and stuff, I get like free T-shirts, right?
Yeah.
And so basically, that was my, and I would go out in that. Dude, what do you wear? I'm like, I don't really care about clothes, and I was like, it's not really important to me. So like, it would literally be like this animal symbol of like optimum nutrition protein or something. I'm
Amazing.
in your camp, so
Yeah, I'm kind of like technical fabrics too, Nick. I'm in my running gear
Yeah.
era, I guess, to use a Taylor Swift term. I'm in my technical gear era.
Yeah, man. I mean, dad life, you know?
Yeah.
You gotta be ready for it all.
You got some good sneakers on, right? Just well, you probably don't wear sneakers. You're wearing boots, right, Nick?
I mean, at this point, or Crocs.
At this point, it's just Crocs. How does Crocs look?
Well, that's
Let's look.
Surprised you guys wear shoes because I don't even wear shoes. I would
It's
have to
cold
leave
in
the house to
mom's
wear.
basement, man. It's cold in the basement.
I got slippers on. I don't got shoes.
Cold in the basement.
Moccasins.
All right. We've gone off the rails. We've gone off the rails. We're at time. But hey, it's always a pleasure, you guys. It really is. Um, I learn something new from you guys every week, so I'm thankful for the time we have in the discussions. As always, please like, follow, subscribe, and we will see you next week with another brand new TA report with your